ecosystem for incubating ideas. I would now like to introduce our guest speakers for this session, Mr. Rakesh Rajiv Sir, Senior Incubation Manager, Sign IIT, and Ms. Ruchi Singh, Startup Co-founder, Cerilec Nutritech India. Mr. Rakesh Rajiv Sir is Senior Incubation Manager, Sign IIT-B. He is academically a MBA from University of Mumbai, postgraduate diploma from University of Auckland, and BTech from Vellore Institute of Technology. Mr. Rakesh is a senior incubation manager at Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the technology business incubator at IIT Bombay. Mr. Rakesh leads the incubation activities and external national and international programs at SIGN and have closely worked with 100 plus startups. He is a technology and management professional with 10 plus years experience in technology business incubation, life science research, marketing, and intellectual property law. Prior to SIGN, Rakesh Sir has worked with the technology transfer offices at 2 leading universities in New Zealand. I now call upon Sir to start his presentation.
Thank you so much. Very good morning to one and all. And I take this opportunity to thank Professor Ujwala, Dr. Clara, and Vijay for inviting me for this particular session. Right, so the session that we would look at today is on ecosystem for incubating ideas. And I represent an incubation center in Mumbai itself at IIT Bombay called Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is the technology business incubator at IIT Bombay. So, most of you have heard about incubation center. So, but I thought I will kind of break it down as to what exactly is an incubator. So take you through the basics. And this is the following, which I would cover in my slide for another 30 minutes or so, as to what is an incubation center. I'll quickly introduce you to SIGN and also talk about the different ecosystem that is important while we look at innovating and entrepreneurship management, how to set up an incubation center, what are some of the government support available, and what are some of the programs and facilities available at SIGN. Now, looking at incubation center or an incubator, this is what probably comes to our mind. This is what came to my mind many years back when I was doing my BTech and VIT, and then we had a TBI. I thought it was something to do with babies, right? And so looking at this picture, and I'll try to kind of explain through this. For example, a baby incubator would have a casing, which is basically the infrastructure support that any incubation center would provide. It would be in the form of a building or in a fully furnished office space, etc. And then there is oxygen, which is like funding. Without oxygen, it's difficult to live, and for a startup without funding, it is difficult to sustain for a long period. And incubation managers, really, we look ourselves as doctors and nurses to make sure our babies, which is our startups, are doing fine. Are they getting enough nutrition? Are they able to grow properly? And that is what day in and day out, what I've been doing in the past 6 years at SIGN. And the environment is what the incubator really provides, which is the business and the technology ecosystem, which makes sure that the growth happens and there is enough support from within the environment for proper growth. And obviously, there is the display panel, which is typically a private limited company that a startup is incorporated as. So every startup which is set up in incubation center has their own particular company module, which the name of the company being displayed and the name of the promoters and basically what technology or innovation that they work on. But in addition to this, there is a lot of advantage of being in an ecosystem where there is a lot of learning, peer-to-peer learning and experience sharing, which basically enriches an incubation center. So when faculty members or students or even alumni from various parts of India come to SIGN, they would be able to share themselves with each other, cross-pollinate ideas. It could be basic questions such as what is a bank account that we can start a current account with, who are the investors you spoke to, and so on and so forth. So it basically helps to kind of share ideas across different people within the ecosystem, and that is what really an incubator really provides in terms of the various support. So this is in terms of what an incubator is, and relating it to the incubator that we kind of relate to. Now, coming to Sign, we started in the year 2004, so over 17 years currently. And we started with the mandate of supporting innovation and entrepreneurship at IIT Bombay. And that's what we set out for. And we have a focus on IP-based startups. So strong differentiation and competitive advantage is what we focus. And some of the basis for incubation, we look at economic growth, which basically means incubator at an early stage takes a high risk in kind of believing in the startup or putting an investment in a particular startup, high risk and a high reward kind of a model that we operate on. Social impact, there are a lot of startups which helps in the bottom of the pyramid kind of sector, financial inclusion, medical device and life care, which kind of empowers people at different levels in the society. We also have startups in defense and other fields, which is important to the country as such, which gives the strategic value. So this is basically what Sign focuses on. And now I will quickly tell you about the journey we had, how Sign evolved over the last 17 years. So we started in early 2000 and 2004 as a pilot incubator. It even started as a small space within a department, within the department in one of the departments in campus itself. We didn't have a formal incorporation. Sign. This is before Sign started in 2000 to 2004. It was more of a space which was given within the institute as such, and we incubated 13 companies, mostly in IT space, IT and IT enabled services, because that's where in 2000 the industry was heading towards. And when Sign was formally incorporated in 2004, we were incorporated as a society. And from 2004 to 2015, the next 11 years, we shifted from services to kind of looking at product-based startups. So when I meant product-based startups, they are hardware devices. It could be anything related to any tech is what we really looked at. And from 13, we over the next 11 years, we became 64 companies, and we slowly started giving cash support in the form of a POC grant to different startups who came to us. And now 2015, I mean, there's been a lot of change which happened thanks to the government initiatives, which with the help of Startup India, Make in India, which really started in 2015-16. And then that's what incubators across the country were able to kind of grow at a very fast pace during the next 7 years and counting now. And we also evolved during this time. So if you look, we grew 3x within a span of 6 years as such. So we started doing a corporate accelerator program, and we got recognized as a center of excellence. We did cross-border programs with different countries such as Switzerland, Taiwan, Europe, as well as in North America. And so that's what kind of evolved as such. But now let me also talk about the impact that we were able to create. I mentioned 182 startups. This was over the period of 17 years. And then this has led to 550 entrepreneurs, which is being supported to roughly 4 to 5 members within a startup. And they went on and raised close to 2,500 crore. And the total valuation of all the 182 startups is close to 2 billion currently. We have, in fact, one unicorn which came out in April this year. And then this is quite interesting. So every 1 rupee that Sign was able to invest, the startups went on and raised 108 rupees. So 1:108 is kind of the ratio that we see. And this has led to 4,300 employments. And so this has been the impact we were able to create. And one thing I want to kind of also mention is that faculty involvement in Sign, it's not there on the slide, but we have seen 25% of our total number of startups having a faculty member on board as an advisor or as a co-founder, because the institute as such had different policies which enabled faculties to be part of startups as such. And currently we have 51 companies, of which 81 are graduates. So graduate is when they move out of the incubation center after 3 years. Those 3 years is the support period that we give. And 10 of them have been merged and 40 have been folded. Basically, they were not able to move forward after time. So if you look really, success ratio of 79% or and above, and that's what we've been able to generate. So IP generated, this is from within the campus. We were able to capitalize on translational research, and 200 IPs got generated by our startups. And now coming to the topic of today, as to what is the ecosystem that enables or helps to thrive entrepreneurship. So we look at two different ways by which we can do it, internal as well as external. So I'll take the example of IIT Bombay as such in terms of how we capitalize on our internal ecosystem. So we have the Tech Transfer Office, which is IRCC, by which Sign gets to know which are the patents are being filed, what are the domain areas, who are the faculty members or students or students who kind of file these patents. We interact with them, understand if there is a transnational research component to it, and then tell more about what are the support that we can provide in terms of mentorship, funding, connection with corporates, getting feedback, etc. So this is where we tap into it initially in terms of the patents and transnational research activities. And then we have a school of entrepreneurship, basically giving courses on entrepreneurship and technology venture creation. So students there would almost all of them would need to work on a startup idea, and we try to see which are the ideas which is of mandate to Sign, meaning which are working on technology. We kind of nurture them as they graduate. And then we have various student cells on campus, such as the E-Cell, Postgraduate Academic Council, E-Club, etc. So what I'm trying to say is that the internal ecosystem really gives in that pipeline of different innovations happening within the campus. And there are various applied research groups. Then there is the research park that we have, and then the core research groups of various departments. So this is kind of the internal ecosystem by which we get the pipeline in terms of different innovations which are happening within the campus itself. And now what we do is that within the ecosystem, we try to connect them with the external ecosystem, and that's what we've been trying to build, over time. So we tap into the investors at different stages. It could be seed level, angel, and VC level, and then we have industry experts and mentors, various designers, manufacturing service providers. Basically, because most of our startups are working on hardware, it is important to make sure that they're able to manufacture these at a low cost and then at good quality, which at a lower lead time. And we also have various startup associations such as TIE, NASCOM, by which we are able to kind of give that ecosystem to startups, and also international connects with the different programs, cross-border programs that I mentioned. So this is important as to, for every academic organization, academic body, what is the internal and external ecosystem which is available, and how to best tap into these ecosystems. Now, I'll just take some time into explaining as to how we can set up an incubation center in terms of setting it up at an initial stage. Right. Number one is to understand the various thrust areas. For example, if it is a pharmaceutical college, then you know that it is pharma and bio, which is the focus. When it came to us, we had 26 departments covering from physics to chemistry to biomedical engineering. So we thought, rather than focusing on a particular sector, we kind of made it agnostic across multiple sectors. And then the host institute strength. So tapping into the strength of your host institute, you can see what are the areas which you need to focus on. Local ecosystem is another important area as to which are the organizations by which you can kind of get complementary support from. This is the thrust area focus initially, to understand what it is. Then moving to the infrastructure, it's important to have a dedicated space within the campus itself where you can set it aside for incubation activity. When we started off, I think it was around 5,000 square feet that we had in a small department, a small space in the department, and then slowly within time, a separate space was earmarked within the campus for us, wherein we could set up individual office space as well as shared lab facilities. So this is the infrastructure part of it. Then it is important to have a memorandum of understanding between the host institute as well as the incubation center in terms of the space, what would be the rental which would be charged for it. If it is a shared lab, what will be the subsidized cost. So both of these come in at a subsidized rate compared to industry or the market rates. And it is important as to who owns the IP and how is the IP transfer being done. For example, if it is within IIT Bombay, any technology which is being developed by a faculty member or a student while they were in role or in employment, the IP belongs to the institute and it gets transferred to the startup for a fixed period of time, usually 3 years when they are within the incubation center. And then within that time, if they're able to commercialize that particular innovation, then the IP gets licensed to the startup in due course. If not, the IP goes back to the institute. That is the framework that we have at IIT Bombay. And then the term should be faculty and student friendly. Yeah, I can go more details in Q&A later on. Then while setting up an incubation center, team is quite important. So when we started, it was in 2004. I hear from Poini ma'am, who's our CEO. She said that we had just 3 team members, which is basically herself as a CEO. And then there was a manager, like an incubation manager, who would go in and interact with different faculty members and students. And then thirdly, we had someone to take care of operations. So three team members is what we really started off. But then we grew, and then now we are a team of more than 20. I'll take you through how, what are the different skill set that the team brings in. And slowly, there is a lot of cross-functionality team that was being built. And in the meantime, I also mentioned how the ecosystem needs to be built in terms of government, industry, advisors, and mentors to come on board. So, for example, the SIGN governing board comprised of members from within the academia as well as from the industry. Depending on the thrust area that the incubator is focusing on, we bring in mentors and advisors, which is relevant to these startups so that we could value add to them. And then bringing in investors and other retainers such as IP, legal, chartered accountants who can help in terms of company incorporation, protecting the IP, etc. So this is the in terms of understanding the team and the ecosystem. Next is in terms of the pipeline. I mentioned how in campus, how do we tap onto different entities which are available in terms of helping us generate ideas and innovation. We have a robust screening process, which is a real process. In the interest of time, I would skip this. And then we kind of formalize an agreement, which basically means that every incubation center should strive towards and must strive towards self-sustainability, which basically means that the incubator should be able to self-sustain the activities, at least the operational activities, because there is a time period in which the government funds every incubator. It's usually for a period of 5 years, but then after 5 years, it is expected that the incubator generates revenues to sustain. So the way we do it, we have 3 different sources of revenue. One is the subsidized rental that I mentioned. It is on a per square feet or a per seat basis. Then we pick up a small equity. With equity basically means shares in the startup that comes to us, which is in the range of 1 to 3% of equity, and also a revenue share. Once the company starts making revenues and grows, we take a small revenue component part of it, which is again a single digit 1 to 2%. So that is how we try to kind of self-sustain ourselves. Yeah, and then incubation period, I mentioned it is for a period of 3 years, wherein we closely track and monitor these startups, how they are doing, and what support and interventions they need, and make relevant connection as and when required. I mentioned the self-sustainability part of it earlier. Consideration model is what I mentioned, the 3 different models that we have, and we liquidate. So when the startup goes in and raises funding, we exit usually one third. We kind of exit from each startup, and that's how we kind of run our activities. We are a non-for-profit entity, a society. Usually, 2 different ways in which incubator can be kind of set up is in the form of a society or a non-for-profit Section 8 company. And also there is CSR, which is Corporate Social Responsibility Program, that we get funding from, and also various government programs who kind of gives us a small fee to run the program as such. So these are different ways in which we kind of self-sustain ourselves. And there are various funding and programs that we run, which help startups at different stages. So if you see prototype stage, we have the EIR, or the Entrepreneur in Residence. Seed support, this is from BIRAC. We have the seed fund which comes in. I will talk more about the different funding agencies in the next slide. So we received our initial funding from DST for setting up the incubator in 2004. And then slowly they gave us a seed support in terms of investing in startups and various program level support as such. These are some of the programs that DST has sponsored, and we've been able to provide to these startups. Next is the Ministry of Electronics and IT. So this is focused on IT and IT-enabled startups, or ICT, Information Communication Technology. But for the audience, I think BIRAC would be the most relevant, which basically is Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council. They are a Section 8 company within the Department of Biotech. And I'm sure most of you are already aware of it, but I'll quickly tell that they support bio-related innovations, and also give funding for setting up a bio incubation center, which they call the BioNest program. And also they have various funding schemes, such as BIG, which is Biotechnology Ignition Grant, which is a funding of 50 lakhs, which the call for applications opens usually in Jan and July. So I think the next call would happen by next month, which takes the startup from idea to POC. And then we have other scale-up grants, which kind of helps the startup to grow in different stages. It can be applied by an innovator. I often get questions in terms of, we don't want to form a legal entity as such. Can we start as a project? Of course, you can do, provided the institute has policies to enable faculty members to kind of be part of startups. And these are the various other schemes. There is also a scheme called as PACE scheme, which is again by BIRAC, which helps the fund to come directly to the faculty members, which some of our professors have also availed, and the call also happens twice a year. So this is in terms of BIRAC's funding availability, and with the help of the government support that we received, this is how we've been able to use it in terms of setting up lab infrastructures. And slowly we kind of, with the help of government, there is also state government support in terms of Maharashtra State Innovation Society, MSINS. And this is the external ecosystem that I mentioned earlier, how we are able to kind of get support from corporates. With Intel, we've been having a close relationship for the last 5 years in terms of running an accelerator program called as Plugin, which is for IT and hardware-based startups. And also we have MOUs with different hospitals as such. If any of our startups want to do a validation study or a clinical validation, we kind of connect them with relevant hospitals and pharma companies as such. And also international relationships with Swiss consulate. We run a cross-border program wherein we take 10 top innovators from India, and we take them to Swiss, and the Swiss innovators come to India like a cross-border program. Same with Taiwan and China and University of Toronto. This is some of the international programs we've been able to do. And investors relationship, we organize investor days wherein startups, the startups were really looking at funding, but importantly, we kind of train them on how to pitch and how to what is the valuation and what is the ways in which you could negotiate all these things. We kind of tell them, and once we kind of train them, we kind of put it forward to investors, and then that's how we try to kind of value add to the startups. And corporate is important because it helps in validating what they're doing. It helps in testing and getting mentorship from within the industry, and help them in path correction, or even connection in terms of manufacturing support or co-creation. So I will now quickly, I think I have just 5 more minutes, if I'm not wrong. I'll quickly run you through what are the different support we have right from POC stage to accelerator stage. So this is when a company is not incorporated, right? So they are still figuring out what is that they want to work on, and we provide a seed support in the form of a POC grant. And once they come up to a stage in which they are wanting to take this full time, we give them the full incubation support. So we have two different models. One is the physical, wherein you get a space within the campus itself. The other is a virtual model, wherein the startup could be located anywhere in India, but the support, which is mentioned below, is given to the startup. And then this is for a more mature startup in terms of connecting them with various corporates and scale partners. And I mentioned what are the support which is typically provided by an incubator, right? The casing that I mentioned in the that is infrastructure, oxygen, which is funding. All these are ecosystem support in terms of mentoring, networking, visibility, and advisory. So the incubation support, as I mentioned, is for a period of 3 years. This is kind of the spectrum of companies. Thanks to BIRAC and various enablers, I think 50%, close to 50% of our startups are in the healthcare segment currently. That's been another vertical which is growing in time. So at different stages, we have different support. So academic programs, as I mentioned, the School of Entrepreneurship, and then there is the Tinkerers Lab and the student clubs such as eCell. They provide that training programs, and then boot camps and hackathon is the next level. And then Sign really comes in when, as I mentioned, the POC grant, which we provide for the innovator to work on their prototype to make it to something which could be demonstrated in terms of functionality. And that's where Sign really comes in. And then we kind of provide follow-up grants, the BIRAC BIG, which I mentioned. And also we have call for application for different grant support, which is given by the government, or even CSR support from corporates. We kind of open it up. And then the growth accelerator program. So this is kind of the spectrum of support which we provide, and the various programs which is there in each stage. I'll skip this in the interest of time. This is my last slide, really. So as I mentioned, 3 team members. We started in 2004. Now we have 27 people. So and combined experience of more than 200 years. I come from a background in life sciences in terms of biotechnology, and my colleagues comes in from technology management, banking, finance, legal, and IT. So that's how we kind of evolved as such in terms of Sign. Or I think I will be happy to take questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this enlightening session on setting up an incubation cell and the various facets of it. I now would like to introduce our next speaker for this session. That is Ms. Ruchi Singh, madam. Ms. Ruchi Singh, madam, is startup co-founder, Cerealia Nutritech India. She is a pharma professional by degree and a technopreneur by passion. She is currently pursuing PhD from Delhi Pharmaceutical Sciences and Research University, Delhi. She is currently a co-founder and Chief Technology Officer, Cerealia Nutritech Private Limited, New Delhi, and Founder Director, Relicus Healthcare Private Limited, Mumbai. She was teaching as Assistant Professor at Vivekanand Education Society's College of Pharmacy. She has 5 years of experience in pharmaceutical product development. Also, she holds a patent for composition for transdermal delivery of micronutrients and method of preparation. She has various awards and recognitions to her credit. She is recognized as top 500 global deep tech startups under Hello Tomorrow Global Summit 2019, France. She's a proud recipient of Startuppreneur of the Year, Life Sciences and Healthcare category at C2 Future Global Business Forum 2018, sponsored by Jubilant Life Sciences. She's emerged as one of the top 5 startups out of cohort of 33 startups for Advanced Business Acceleration Program by at Accelerate at Andhra Pradesh Technology Business Accelerator. She is a co-principal investigator in funding received from Pfizer India under the Pfizer IIT Delhi Innovation and IP program. Grand Challenges Canada under Stars in Global Health Round 9. Bills and Melinda Gates Foundation under Grand Challenges Exploration India, supported by DBT BIRAC, Government of India, and implemented by IKP Knowledge Park. She is felicitated by the Honorable Governor of Goa, Smith Mridula Sinha, on occasion of the Women's Day, 8th March 2018, at Seaside Startup Summit, Goa, as top 5 budding women entrepreneurs. With this brief introduction, I now call upon Ruchi Singh Madam to address the session and give a note. Ma'am, we welcome you all.
Uh, Thank you, Pallavi, for the warm welcome and the introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ujjwala, Dr. Clara, and Vijay for inviting me here, and BCP as a whole for hosting me and curating this amazing program. I wish this something like this was held when I was a master student or a faculty. Yeah. Also, thank you, Rakesh, for setting up the pace of the session because I become a perfect case study for what Rakesh has spoken over the last 30 minutes or so. Because I call myself, I would like to call myself a incubator product, incubation product, because pre getting to know, before I got to know about this incubation, what is an incubator and all those jargons, what generally people which are there, I had no idea how I would start with my startup journey. So today I'm just going to talk about that. I was always a very curious student, curious child. Even when I was doing my BPharm, the most daunting question that probably every graduate has, either I should go for MBA or I should go for MPharm. And I was someone who was interested in both research as well as the managerial side. And to add to my confusion, I had given both the entrance examinations and I cleared both. So then finally I decided probably it was just the since I cleared GPAT, maybe it was just the stipend that I was going to get, or also maybe the comfort level that okay, I'll be going to my own host institute, my alma mater for my masters. I somehow decided that I'll go for MPharm. Also, while doing my MPharm, I saw a lot of my seniors what kind of research work they were doing. I was looking at the thesis in the library and reading articles. I thought that a lot of research is being done in the academia, but nothing really translates. So I wanted to do something which was meaningful. And with one of my senior who was doing her PhD and my guide, Dr. Supriya Shide, we applied for this grant, which Rakesh spoke about. It's from BIRAC. It was by chance we saw this ad in the newspaper and we decided that okay, let's give it a try. And to our surprise, we got this grant. Now we were pretty naive. We gave the proposal, we gave the presentation, and got selected. But somehow we did not know that for this grant you have to move to the incubation partner, the BIG partner. And this is where I was introduced to all the terms. So we had to move to KIIT Technology Business Incubator, which is Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology in Bhubaneswar, very far away from Bombay. In fact, I had not even heard, I did not even know, where exactly Bhubaneswar was before we got this grant. So this was the place wherein I got to know about these terms such as what is bioincubator, startup, incubator, patent landscape, and so many other jargons which we were completely aloof of. Okay, CBI was the place, wherein we got the funding. I developed research skills because the environment there was of wherein a lot of high tech research was going on. I also got to know about okay patents. I played a major part in drafting of the patents. So this was there, but always since my BPharm days, I wanted to do something of my own, but I had absolutely no idea how. Because I always thought that if you want to start something of your own, you need a lot of capital, which was not really possible for me. So since since I got to know about like okay, there is support available if you want to do something of your own, and I started my first startup, which was Relicus Healthcare. I won't call it an innovative startup. It was majorly into generic pharmaceutical branding and marketing, wherein we were just getting it manufactured, getting generic products manufactured from a loan licensing or third party manufacturing and branding it on our own. I would call it a failed startup because there's a lot of learning, a lot of mistakes that we did there. I would like to share these mistakes with you because I think it's important learning from one's own mistakes. And so when I started Relicus, we did not have a proper founders agreement. Even though I started the company with a very close friend of mine, we did not have a proper founders agreement. We did not have bifurcation, very clear guideline that okay, you will be responsible for this, I'll be responsible for this. And eventually, if you do not have a proper founders agreement, it leads to a lot of conflict. Also, there were a lot of legal challenges. For example, when if you remember, around in 2016-17, there was this one notification by the CDSCO, around 350 combinations were banned. And out of 8 products that we now launched, 3 products fall in that banned combination. So we had to somehow we had the we had the batch manufactured. It was ready for selling, but then suddenly it was banned. So a lot of legal challenges also that we faced. Another problem was we didn't know about patents, but then trademark was something which I was still not very aware of, and probably not trained, or maybe I was ignorant that I did not learn more about it. So since it was a wholesale branding and marketing company, the brand name is extremely important. The technology, even if you're into a technology company, the technology name is extremely important. So we faced certain trademark issues as well, because of which we had to change. The trademarks did not get issues. There were litigations when we filed for the trademark, and then we had to change the brand name in moment. Also, coming from a technical education background, I had no training or experience, definitely not, but not even any formal education training in handling the supply chain. So that is another problem wherein, we could not handle the supply chain. Also, there is something called as unit economics, wherein you decide what will be the price of your individual unit. That will be the selling price of the individual unit. Now, on paper, 120% profit, 200 plus percent profit sounds very fancy. But then when you actually go at the ground level, these things are something which you need to learn and which you need to dig deeper. Also, I have this major problem. I had this major problem of micromanagement, wherein I wanted to be a part of everything. So I wanted to foresee everything that was happening around. And the most major problem or the major mistake that we did was failure to pivot. So basically, we did not know that okay, at this particular point of time, something if it is not working, it's okay. You have to just take some another route. So from this, the learnings that I got was obviously you have the right co-founders. Doesn't matter if they're not your friends, because having the same vision is extremely important. Another problem was the operation costs were pretty high. We were spending a lot on the rent and fancy gadgets and everything. So then keeping it as low as possible initially is the key. I think that will take you in the wrong. That will take you, a long way. Also, like I mentioned, I had the problem of micromanaging everything. What I realized was, and which I absolutely believe in right now, and through my running of my other startup, Cerelia, that you cannot do everything yourself. Empower others. If you empower others, they do wonders. Another problem when I started Relicus, I did not have it. I did have a purpose, but it did not have a story. It was just probably something because I wanted to start. So always when you start something, have for a purpose. Because when you're starting a startup, the earnings would probably, if you're lucky, if you start in the first year, but otherwise it generally takes a lot more than that. So if you have a purpose, you don't easily give up. But if you don't start with a purpose, it's very difficult to have that much of endurance, have that much of patience, and wait and keep working day in and day out for 2 3 years, 4 years, or maybe more than that, to look at some results coming in. Also, when I was working in Relicus and I started Relicus, we thought, okay, let's hire part-time employees, let's hire undergraduates, let's hire. So invest in hiring well, because even though it's upfront, it's a cost, but then it helps in growing your company. One major issue with Relicus, like I mentioned, there was no purpose, there was no story to the company. So it's just like don't just sell, because there are thousands and hundreds of products that are available in the market. But unless and until you have a story, you will not be able to differentiate yourself from the others. And most important, there will be failure. Just don't fear failure, embrace it, and learn from the mistakes. So, with all the learnings from the mistakes, We started Cerelia Nutritech. So Cerelia Nutritech is a company which has a QSC in developing patented products. So we are innovative. We develop innovative products for tackling anemia and malnutrition. So the root of Cerealia started while I was in KIIT Bhubaneswar. Like all of you know, the nutritional deficiency in Bhubaneswar, in Odisha, is the poorest in India. So my co-founder Kiran, he was working on some other project which was on maternal and child health. Now we were just sitting and jotting down what could be the problems associated with maternal and child health, which affects the either the baby's health or the mother's health, pre-conception, post-conception, during the pregnancy. Now, what we realized was we jotted some 150 odd problems, and what we realized the root cause of all these problems, all these diseases could have been very easily avoided had the mother been properly nourished. And there's some major deficiencies which is generally seen in a pregnant woman is iron, B12, vitamin D, and folic acid. Now, 1 in 3 person attending this session is deficient in one or the other form of vitamin deficiency. More than 2 million people globally have different forms of deficiency, which a lot of people are unaware of. Also, talking technically, these supplements they suffer low oral bioavailability. If you must have read the label of various vitamin supplements available, they mention 200% of RD. Sometimes it's as high as 1200% of RD. Now, this extra amount is obviously for the chemical degradation, but is also for compensating the loss during the loss while loss of oral supplementation because of low gastric pH, because of improper absorption. So specifically B12, if we talk, B12 absorption is barely 1 to 30%. So you can imagine how difficult it is to get the status higher, the nutrition status higher. Also, specifically for iron, when you take iron capsules and tablets, there is GI irritation, bowel discomfort, and generally pregnant women do suffer from nausea, morning sickness. Also, iron causes a lot of constipation, though there are certain other salts which have come up. So, this was on the technical front. When we were talking to the stakeholders in various the Anganwadi Behenjis, pregnant women, nursing mothers, doctors, treating the nursing mothers, gynecologists, what we realized was there was a lot of social stigma also associated. Now, every year, government spends close to 26,000 crores on various nutrition initiatives. You all must be aware that they give iron and folic acid tablets practically for free for pregnant women. But then what we realized was, so then we thought, okay, if government is spending so much and these tablets are given for free, then why is the deficiency status still so poor? So what we realized was the adherence to these supplements is barely 35% according to a WHO report. Now why? One major reason was morning sickness. Other reason was something which was very ironic. When you have iron tablets or capsules, the stool color changes to dark brown or black. Now, how obsessed we are with skin color in India, the mother-in-law would tell the daughter-in-law or the pregnant mother that no, if you're having this tablet, the stool color is changing, so the baby that will be born will also be darker in color. The other major problem is patriarchy. Generally, women they have food after the male and other elder male children and other elder women in the household. So a lot of times, what in our survey, what we found that the husband would not let the wife have these supplements because he said, "I am doing all the physical labor. You do not need energy, but I do." So this was something. So then we thought, okay, this was something which was very shocking for us. Coming from an urban area, we did not realize that such sort of things do happen. And when we dig deeper, when we tried doing certain surveys in urban areas, some of these problems existed even in the urban areas. So we thought of coming up with a solution which the women would love to use rather than being compelled to use. So we developed a moisturizer which has encapsulated micronutrients. And so it's a simple moisturizer wherein you just need to apply it on the skin and the nutrients would be delivered via skin into the blood. So it's a transdermal micronutrient delivery system. Based on our preclinical proof of concept, it has 67% relative bioavailability, which means that it is observed 33% higher as compared to oral solution. Because of which we are able to reduce the dose. So this is our technology, Ceridom. It's a patent granted technology. Our Indian patent is granted, and soon we are hoping that our US and Australia patents will also be granted. It's for simultaneous delivery of hydrophilic as well as lipophilic molecules and certain minerals. Now, coming to how we, so such sort of research takes a lot of money. So how we, at various stages, we got funding support, what Rakesh was mentioning in his presentation. We got funding support from various institutions, which really helped us to come up to reach the stage where we are right now today. So initially to explore, when we had this idea to explore, how we can go ahead. So my co-founder was a social innovation and immersion program, SIIP fellow, which is through BIRAC, wherein we got some small amounts of 5 lakhs to explore, to build some prototype. And there was also a fellowship amount for him, so that for a period of 18 months, so that, the entrepreneur do not give up. They have a secure funding for self-funding. And also the most important part is mentorship, because without mentorship, it's very difficult. Like I mentioned, you cannot do everything. You do not know everything. So you do need mentors. The next funding that we got was through Pfizer IIT. So when the SIIP fellowship was going on for a period of 18 months, we did develop a prototype. We got good results, and so we decided, okay, let's go ahead with this. Since the POC was nice, we had a good, very positive animal trials results and ex vivo results. We decided, okay, let's apply for more funding opportunities and try developing this. So the next grant what we got was, from Pfizer IIT Delhi Innovation and IT Program, wherein Pfizer is the funding partner, IIT Delhi is the implementation partner. So IIT Delhi gives you space, mentorship. Pfizer is the funding. Even since Pfizer is a pharma company and our products completely aligned with their portfolio, we got a lot of support, immeasurable support from Pfizer's end, um, in terms of regulatory challenges, in terms of clinical validation, in terms of uh, certain protocols, certain validations, etc. The next funding that we got was from the Canadian government, which is Grand Challenges Canada. It's a grant which is generally given. They have various calls, very specific. Ours was Stars in Global Health. We have grants specific for maternal and child health, mental health, sexual health, etc. So this we got for our initial proof of concept in humans, and the other grant that we got was Grand Challenges India, which is through Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Earlier, it was being implemented by IKP Hyderabad, but now even BIRAC has a role to play. So these were the three grants that we got, which helped us to, okay, develop the product, because such sort of a product requires a lot of testing, a lot of animal trials, human trials. So human trials will be starting now, but then a lot of animal validation was required in rats and rabbits. Some failed animal trials also we had to do. We did. Now now we are technical people. We are probably experts in technical. We can develop a very nice product. But then there are certain things which, uh, particularly on the legal aspect or on the business aspect, which we do not understand. So there are certain fellowships, accelerator programs which are available, which equip you with this knowledge. So I was specifically a part of these two fellowships, which is University of Texas IC Square Institute. It's an accelerator program. It's a 6-month long accelerator program. It's like a mini MBA, which talks about business plan development, some legal aspects, how to pitch, how to approach investors, what is an investment, how to develop your portfolio, etc. Another program which is Women Entrepreneurship and Empowerment. This is through D Foundation and DSC. This was conducted at IIT Delhi, but I think now they conduct it even at IIT Bombay. I think this was one of the best programs that I attended. This is specifically for women. They have in all my sessions, I kind of vouch for this program because this is the program where I got to learn a lot of things, and wherever I made mistakes in my first startup, I got to learn a lot of things here. So again, it's like a mini MBA program which equips you with a lot of knowledge, which is pretty difficult for a technical person to know of. So right now we are incubated in DIPSRU, which is earlier like Delhi Pharmaceutical Science and Research University. They have a BioNest incubator which is supported by BIRAC, and we get a lot of connects from here as well. And since this is a very pharma-specific incubator, I thought that I would mention them here. I'm very grateful to all the support that they are offering us right now. So in the past 5 years of starting my startup, we got to travel the world representing India and some technology startups. I got to speak at the CII Confederation of Indian Industry Forum. Also, we were a part of Total Tata Social Entrepreneur Enterprise Challenge. So it has been an amazing experience. This is my small team. This is our lab that we have set up, and the entire lab has been set up. So all these equipment belong to us, and we have all been purchased from the grants that we have received. So doesn't matter if you are not a part of any institute, you can be an individual, form a company, and there are people who would support you. Because a lot of times when I was in masters, I thought, okay, grants are just for government college people, and I did not belong to a government college. But that was a very wrong perception that I had. There are opportunities available which you can avail even as an individual, or it doesn't matter where you belong to. So this is our product portfolio. We started with one product, which is B12 iron and folic acid. Right now we have, okay, this is not an updated slide. We have 9 products right now. So we have something for pain, we have something for smoking cessation, vitamin D, vitamin A, etc. Now, the most important part of my journey has been you cannot just stick to one particular aspect. Now, I love formulation. I am the chief technical officer in my startup, so I take care of all the product development activities. But then I cannot stick to it unless and until I know about the regulatory. I know about what is GMP, GLP. I know about the preclinical. I should know about even IPR. I should also know about the marketing aspect of it, the taxations, the compliances, the finance. So, so in these 5 years, I have upgraded myself, which I'm very grateful for, because had I taken up a job, a lot of times I do feel that okay, I should have taken up a job, and I would be having a constant source of income and no stress. Obviously, that stress is another level, but then at least I would not have stress of having the paycheck at the start of the month. But then what I realized is, had I been stuck to a job, I would have just learned one aspect of it, probably the marketing aspect or formulation, depending on where I got the job. So then, since I'm running my startup, I kind of it's a holistic approach, and I kind of know I have to know about it. I have to know about everything, because even if you have a regulatory consultant, unless and until you know about the challenges, you cannot ask them the right questions. Unless and until you know about patenting and trademarks or copyright, you cannot talk to the IPR consultant. You cannot talk to the preclinical vendor unless and until you know how to do it. So you have to constantly keep upgrading yourself, and which is I think the best part. And I'm still upgrading myself depending on what new technology. So right now I'm learning more about data science, because that is the next thing, and we're trying to incorporate a lot of data analysis and data science in our how the way we are handling our data. So this is my super amazing team. Kiran is a biotechnologist, my co-founder. Dr. Deepthi is a public health expert. Nikhil is the director for strategy. He also comes from the startup ecosystem, wherein he has more than 7, 8 years, 10 years of experience in incubators, bioincubators, and accelerators. So we were very lucky when we got the Pfizer IIT Delhi grant. we did not have a mentor in IIT Delhi, and that is somehow mandatory for them. So luckily, Dr. Veena Kaul, who was now she's an emeritus professor there, but that time she was the head of Center for Biomedical Engineering. She was there and on the panel uh, for evaluating our proposal, and we were lucky that she agreed to be our mentor. So Dr. Veena Kaul is our mentor, and we have been getting immense support from her. Dr. Gandham Pulia is another mentor who is deputy director for RMRC Bhubaneswar. He's an expert in nutritional sciences. In the past 5 years since our inception, we have got, I think, more than 17 awards at various national and international levels. It has been a roller coaster ride, but then extremely enjoyable and a great learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruchi ma'am, for sharing your learnings on various key parameters for successful startup and the solutions in overcoming challenges observed for the same. I now call upon Mr. Vijay Kumar Shivpuje sir, Director Patlex Business Solution India, to overtake the proceedings for the bus session for ecosystems for incubating ideas. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Harita, and the entire organizing team for having this wonderful faculty development program, and especially this particular session wherein we had this. I would say from Rakesh, the horse's mouth. I would say someone who is incubating the ideas, especially, and he's coming from the life sciences domain. And to be honest, for Ruchi, as she rightly mentioned, I believe it was more or less like a roller coaster ride, and everyone wants to know how, like, that the things actually work in the startup ecosystem or the incubation ecosystem as such. So we are now for this buzz session, and we have both the guests, Rakesh and Ruchi. And once again, welcome Rakesh back to this session. So let me start with a question to Rakesh. Actually, you mentioned about the screening process for the startups at Sign IIT Bombay. And how can a startup or any faculty from outside IIT Bombay can they approach first of all, and so maybe can you throw us a bit of light on the processes that are there at Sign IIT?
Sure. So initially, as I said, we started off focusing on IITB, but then now we are expanded ourselves, and anybody from across India through our virtual incubation program or our co-incubation program can apply for incubation. And what they need to do is they need to go to our website, signiitb.org, and contact us. There is a form that needs to be filled, and that will get passed on to our ERP platform, and we get an alert that somebody has applied for interest in incubation, and we we'll go through it and we'll see if it is within our mandate that I mentioned. So mandate is supporting technology startups with differentiation, and we look in terms of IP is one of the component that we look at, and we find that it is interesting. We kind of qualify it at our end within the ERP system itself, and an auto email gets sent to the applicant, and they can fill in the detailed form, followed by uploading a pitch template, uploading a pitch document, the template for which is already available, will be made available on email, and they can send it, and then we will screen it at our end, prepare ourselves, and invite them for a meeting wherein we ask various questions in terms of the tech and the market as such. And if you feel that it needs more work, we kind of tell them these are the things which you need to find out. Most of the time we say we need to test it or validate it within your potential or target customer segment, and then come back with feedback, or we connect them with a domain expert to help them in, if it is very interesting, we'll even connect them at an early stage, and then they will come back with the final pitch, and then we will invite two external experts, one a domain technical expert and another an investor or a business expert. We collect our cumulative feedback, and then we decide whether to incubate or not. So these are the 4 steps: contact us form, application form, then feedback, and then external review.
Yeah, just a question linked to this one is there any segregation of startups for IIT Bombay? I mean, is the process
No,
same for
it's
no?
the same. It's the
Is the
same.
same process?
It is the
So there
same
is
process.
okay, great, yeah. So actually, Ruchi, you already mentioned about like how you actually got incubated, but then what everyone wants to know here is like how can they approach any of the incubators as such, and what should the students or the faculties or the researchers should do, like of course there are lots of incubators nowadays available, and there are lots of schemes as well. What should they actually do to get in touch with these incubators, Ruchi?
So I think first, the most important thing would be when we were looking for an incubator. So IIT Delhi happened very organically because we got the Pfizer IIT grant. But then later on, when we were looking, so we got incubated at IIT for 2 years during the duration of the Pfizer IIT grant. But then post that, when we were looking, we were ready to move to any part of the country, which was a plus point for us. So we compared, what facilities they have, whether it is matching what we require. Then the other thing definitely is a major factor, which is the rent. So a lot of a lot of incubators, they have a very high rent, and they have facilities which were not necessary for us. So they are more into probably the life science or biotechnology domain, but we are more into pharma. So we required things which are very specific to pharma. So just look at the rent definitely. If you are ready to move in any part of India, that's the best thing that you could do, because different incubators have different. Even though all of them are bio incubators, you will be definitely approaching bio incubators, but still all of them have different expertise. So rent is one factor. Now Rakesh mentioned they take some equity. Okay, so check. Some incubators take 5% equity, some take 1% equity, some take 2% equity. So compare that as well, and the kind of benefit ratio. So say someone is taking 5% equity, but it's a big brand, but you are not getting any benefit out of it because they are probably experts in biotech, and you want to do pharma. So it doesn't really matter. Rent was another one major constraint. So how we decided to go to Dipstru is because so we spoke to all these bioincubators all across India and tried to figure out which could be the best for us. But then we zeroed down on the Dipstru because rent was a major thing. Next thing is it's very specific to pharma. So whatever we did not have at our expense, like in our own lab, everything was available in the university or in Dipsar. So that was very complimentary for us. And the other thing, we were already based in Delhi, so moving cost was just barely 5-7 kilometers, so it was less. And so I'll tell you one thing: we directly approached the director of the incubation center there. We did not have any connect. We just simply wrote an email. We, I think, did not get a reply. Maybe it was in spam, but then we just dropped down. We thought, okay, let's go and talk to them. So we just reached to her office and we decided to talk to her that okay, we are looking for this place. So I think it's very easy. You have to do your own research. Don't just run to the first incubator which is there in your vicinity. Do your research, see what facilities they have, and you just have to connect with them. And most of all of them are very receptive because even like Rakesh mentioned, even they need incubators and good incubators. So yeah, rent, facility, and feasibility is important.
Yeah, I think what one point you mentioned, Ruchi, is I think my question is related to what you mentioned about is what is best fit rather than which one is the closest to you.
Close.
Yeah, Rakesh, I want to know about like when we speak about sign as such, like is there are there any specific cluster areas or thrust areas wherein Sign IIT Bombay is working on?
Right. So currently we are trying to consolidate on 4 different trust areas. So as I mentioned, close to 50% of our incubators are currently in the healthcare domain. So healthcare relates to medical device, therapeutics, diagnostics. We have a focus area. And of course, we are a BioRack Bio Nest Incubation Center. So that is adding up to that support that we get. Second is in terms of Industry 4.0. So manufacturing, since we are connected to various manufacturers within the country and overseas, that is another area that we've been able to consolidate. Third is in terms of mobility. since we see a shift in terms of towards electric vehicles, there are startups which we are incubating focusing on battery technology and battery swapping, as well as EV, ADAS, autonomous driving. That is the next domain. And fourth is clean tech, with a lot of concern on environment and weather. We have trying to build a center of excellence towards these four domain areas as such now.
Yeah, on the same lines, Ruchi, like, when we you got incubated, most of your incubators are bio incubators basically. So would you prefer an incubator which is from your thrust area or a general incubator? Because I think there would be more learning and more opportunities available as an incubation center.
I would prefer something from my trust area because the kind of connections they have, the kind of mentors they have. So say for example, the DIPFLU incubator, they have a very good panel of IT experts which are very specific to pharma. So it kind of gives an edge over. Plus, if you want to get connected to any industry or any, Rakesh was talking about VCs and different angel investors VC. So they also have a specific trust area wherein they invest. So probably a tech investor, there are specific investors. They do invest in multiple areas, but then for healthcare they are very specific. So if you are connected to a bioincubator, because they are the ones who work in healthcare and biotechnology, life science, pharma domain, it definitely has an added advantage. Plus the facilities. So bioincubator is different. Like I might not be entirely correct, but then bioincubator is different from a general incubator. The general incubators are more of plug and play. So you get your laptop, they give you space and other mentorship. But when it comes to bioincubator, a lot of expensive equipment which we cannot afford, those are available apart from the other mentorship support. So bio incubator would be best for someone who is in fact they should only go to bio incubator based on my experience. Do not go ahead with a general incubator.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ruchi. So we have, of course, I request all the participants to put the questions in the chat box. We're taking the questions one by one in the sequence as well. I mean, wherein they are fitting. So we have the first question related to the same thing. Like, when we are speaking about bio incubator and healthcare startups, both of you mentioned about BIRAC. Are there any specific investors, angel investors, or funding agencies for biopharma or healthcare kind of startups as such? And this is coming from Madam Nilima Tombre. Yeah. Rakesh, we'll start with you.
Right. I think for bio startup, getting an angel funding or a VC funding at an initial stage would be difficult, honestly, because again, there is a lot of milestones that need to be achieved, and the risk for a early stage investor at that stage would be higher. In terms of regulations, in terms of experiments being done, the clinical trials, animal testing, PKPD, etc. So for early stage investor, they would say we want to de-risk ourselves as much as possible, right? So the high risk means high reward. But again, for a bio or a biotech or a pharma startup, they would probably shy away at an early stage, or even if they do, they may end up taking a high stake in the company, which may not be good for the startup in the long term. So that's where we, with the help of various government funding, which I mentioned, both from DST and DBT, BIRAC, there has been funding at every stage, which will help the investor to de-risk. So it is a grant which is given, and they have a fixed milestone. For big has got a milestone of idea to prototype. There is a fixed endpoint to the experiments. They reach the milestone, and then there is another grant by which they could apply for. And in between that time, as well as you saw from Ruchi's slides, there was other programs that such as V that she was part of, and other platforms that will enable to kind of bridge that gap, because grant funding, there is a timeline associated, and there is effort in terms of writing a grant, the uncertain period whether we will get the grant or not. So during that time, we may not be able to plan things efficiently. That is where we kind of advised startups to apply to multiple agencies and support. And that is where an incubator really helps them in connecting to various government grant funding. Once they take it to a level, for example, we have a startup working with us who is working on CAR T cell gene therapy. And basically what we did is we connected them with mentors from within the pharma industry to start with, and they gave feedback. And then we uh, applied for government grants. So they received the this was from Biopharma Mission. They got a funding of close to 20 crore of funding for the pharma company. And then that was given in tranches, and it was given to the institute, and the institute gave it is giving it to the innovator in terms of milestone achievement. And so that will kind of de-risk at every stage. And once it comes to a level, there could be multiple ways in which investor would be interested in as a strategic partner, wherein they would try to co-develop it, and IP gets shared, or it could be an acquisition target, or it could be in the case of Ruchi taking it throughout all forward by the company. It really depends on what is the funding requirement and what is the endpoint of each result that we want to achieve. Based on that, we would connect to the right set of people.
Absolutely. I think incubators are doing great job in terms of mediating between the researchers and the industries as well as the funding agencies. Yeah, Ruchi, would you like to add anything to what Rakesh mentioned?
I absolutely agree with him because when we were also, we started out, we also faced difficulty because getting a VC funding or angel investment was difficult because all they ask you for, okay, give us the proof of concept. Now also, in fact, whenever we are being approached by a lot of investment firms and we approach them. So they look for proof of concept in humans because that is when, like he mentioned, de-risking the technology. So they need some de-risking of the technology. And if you do not de-risk, they take up a higher stake. So best would be grant and aid, and a lot of grant and aids are available. Like I think we are a very good example. We availed a good amount of grant and aid for development of our product and reaching the POC stage. So even Indian grants are available, foreign grants are also available. So I would just like to mention, apart from what we have got, there is US aid. UNICEF has a lot of grants. Then uh, Ireland government has very specific grants for healthcare because healthcare they give a lot of importance to healthcare research there. So very high risk technologies also they fund, which sometimes becomes difficult to get funded in India. So even if you have a very high risk technology which has a lot of impact, then a lot of grant opportunities are available. And I would like they are available, and I would request everyone, whoever is interested, explore foreign opportunities because the quantum is pretty high, the exposure is huge. You get a lot of exposure as well. So I can mention Europe has a lot of funding, Netherlands has a lot of funding for Indian companies as well. So you don't need to have a Netherlands company, like Irish company or Dutch company, but then you can still apply from here as an Indian company and you do get funded.
Yeah, okay. So Rakesh, just moving on, well, you mentioned about the selection or screening process of a startup. Once a startup comes to an incubator as such, is there any specific training or induction before they actually start with their activities?
Right. It depends because very often when we give trainings, we give it as a cohort. So a cohort, we have trainers who give trainings, but then they would like to see at least 10 to 15, innovators in a room so that that interaction, everything will become effective. So how we used to do earlier is that every 6 months we have something called as a Science Start program. START basically stands for Startup Training to Achieve Right Target. So it's basically a customer discovery kind of a specialized program wherein startups that are at an early stage, we kind of tell them to focus on customer discovery, basically identifying who would be your target customer, what are the assumptions you're making. Go and meet these people. At least 30 people will try to make them meet and get feedback. And then we kind of give them training in terms of, because all of them are good in tech, because we don't have to train them on tech as such, unless they want to tweak certain things, or if it is designed for manufacturing, they need to kind of optimize things. We kind of connect them with the right people. But business is what we want to train, and learning business is relatively much easier than tech. So we connect them with various business mentors, and then it's a continuous journey, and as in when we have moved completely to online format, and every month, twice a week, sorry, every fortnight, so 2 times a month, we have something called as the Power Hour series with Sign, wherein we take different sessions such as IP, legal, team formation. Even today at 4 o'clock, we're doing on medical device regulatory. So I will also share that link also with you, so that and it's made open to all. So the start program, as I mentioned, it is internal. It is specialized to early stage startups who are incubated with us. But all webinars and such training, which we do twice a month, is open to everyone. Let me just share that link as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I think this is something which would be really useful for everyone, because all these programs are open for everyone, and that's how you learn. Ruchi, you have been incubated at multiple incubation centers. How has been the of course, you shared your journey, but then was there any specific differences in terms of the initial periods or trainings for you as such as an individual?
Um, I would say I think maybe we were lucky, or maybe we took a very informed decision at what stage we wanted to move to which incubator. So because for our first incubator, which is it was not through my startup, but then as a master's student for my BIG grant, there I think I got to know everything, right from what is a bio incubator, the startup ecosystem, what opportunities are available. To be very frank, my experience with all the incubators has been amazing. I do not face as such any problem. The reason for moving out from IIT Delhi was we wanted a bigger space. So we were once we completed the 2 years period, we were at a stage wherein we wanted to scale up our product. So we were looking for more very specific, wherein we could get some get you know uh, uh, get 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 exposure, get access to some pharmaceutical scale up pilot plant. So that's why we moved to Dipsar. That's why we moved to Dipsu incubator. The difference has not been much. I think all of them, like wherever I was, were very helpful. A lot of learning experience. So I don't think so. Huh? One thing that you could do is talk to the incubators present there before going, and there are a lot of these startup events happening now. Most of them are virtual, but then before the pandemic hit, I think I attended a lot of boot camps. So a lot of boot camps, startup events, pitching competitions, wherein you meet these startups. And these startups, you will definitely attend boot camps and pitching events which are very specific to healthcare, or life sciences, or pharma or biotech. Pharma startups are very rare. I think I have just met two in
Yeah.
4 5 years. Just two. I haven't met, but I have just met two. There might be more, but then I have just met two. There are a lot of medical device startups and a few biotech startups. So when you attend these events, you will meet like startups from other incubators. So that's how we also started interacting with them. And then now when we want to go to their incubator in Pune, we talk to them. Tumhara kaisa hai? How much do they charge? What facilities do you get? We talk to someone in Hyderabad. We talk to someone, and that's how you decide. Instead of just talking, because just talking to the incubator, let's just talk to the stakeholders, which is incubating. So for us, our experience has been very good. So even though the current incubator is pretty new, they just set up, like when we joined, the BioNest is not set up. They are just setting it up right now. But then what we wanted, access to the pilot plant, we got it. So it has been good for us.
Okay, great. So we'll go move on to the questions from the participants. Now we have question from Dr. Clara. Does Sign mentor institutes outside institutions to establish incubation centers at the academic institutions as such?
Yes, we do. So earlier, before the pandemic, we used to have sessions with different incubation centers, or they used to even come in to our center, and we used to show them around. All of you are welcome to come to Sign anytime. Just you need to email us, and then you can get my contact details as well. And then just let us know when, and we'll organize a time, and we can take you through the policies that we have formulated. In fact, most of our we being one of the earliest incubators, policies have been used by multiple other incubation centers across the country. So we'll be happy to do that. Virtually, I don't know how effective it would be, but then very recently, even some of the other colleges in Mumbai were also looking at, and we try to do it virtually and share some of our resources, which is available on our website as well. So we do it. Yes.
Yeah, and in line, we have question from Dr. Harita, which is like, could you please apprise us on guidelines for academic setup? As in, is there any specific, a way through which the institution, let's say, Bombay College of Pharmacy, can establish an incubation center?
Right. One is the, as covered in my slide, it is important to have MOU within the host institute, which will be Bombay College of Pharmacy, and an incubation center. And then the policies would be in terms of IP transfer. For example, I give the example of within IITB, we give the IRCC, the Dean R&D office, gives the IP rights to the startup for a period of 3 years, wherein they could incubate it, sign, or start by themselves and form a company, take it forward. If they're able to commercialize and monetize the IP, then it gets licensed to the company within that 3 years period of time. Or if the company is not been able to take it forward, the IP gets licensed back to the institute. That is in terms of policy. And in terms of faculty involvement in startups, now IIT Bombay faculty can take equity share in companies, but they're not allowed to take a separate salary from within the startup. But obviously, there is policy in terms of taking a sabbatical, being part of it. So there are multiple ways in which policies could be laid out. It is important to also have a dedicated space allocated to the incubation center. As I said, when we started off, it was around 5,000 square feet, or I don't know, with the current government mandate, it is 10,000 square feet, which should be earmarked for an incubation center. And then to have a dedicated team which is full-time working on incubation. To start with, it could be a functional team comprising of a CEO or a COO and an incubation manager, three people to start with. But then later on, there could be functional team which could be built in. For example, if I take the example of Sign, we have a professor in charge who is like the administrative link between IIT Bombay and Sign, policy framing and communicating to the larger faculty and student body. He would be the interface between Sign and the institute. Then we have CEO, and then we have a head of operations, and then we have head of incubation. We have projects which looks at government programs as such. We have an IT team, we have an admin team, and then we have an accounts team, and finally we have an outreach team to do the event and management activities as such. So this is how we kind of evolved over a period of time.
Okay, great. Ruchi, it's not a question, but kind of a request for you. This is from Dr. Vaishali Jadhav. She wants you to train the pharmacists specifically in her institute, especially for the startup, and she has really appreciated your journey and the entire presentation as well. Ruchi, my question to you is about you have seen now the different kind of incubation setups, as well as I want to know your views on the incubation or the startup ecosystem, especially in the pharmaceutical area in India, because you've been there now. I would call you, you are more graduated than all of us here, in terms of startup in pharma specifically. Yeah. Okay. Ruchi, I think she has lost the connect in between.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just lost for a moment. Can you just repeat the last question? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah. So, Ruchi, we wanted to know more about your views on pharma ecosystem, especially startup and incubation in India.
I would say since pharma is very niche, not a lot of incubators are available. Very specific to pharma. One is in Vitsar, and the other one I think is in LM College of Pharmacy, Ahmedabad. I'm not aware of any other if they are available. I'm just aware of these two. And in fact, when we started, even the Vitsar incubator was not there. So it was majorly like you fit in with the life science and biotech incubators. So the incubation system as such is not very well developed for pharma, but then somehow we can very easily manage with the life science or what you call as a bio incubator. So I think that's not at all a problem. And Since pharma has a lot of regulations. In fact, now even I feel we have started working on this product which has a long regulatory route. We get frustrated at times. Okay, we get frustrated at times. We feel, okay, fine, we have proof of concept, but we still cannot launch because there's so much of more data to generate just for the regulatory submission. So that's why probably that is the reason, maybe why not a lot of pharmaceutical startups are there, because it's a long gestation period from the inception of your product idea to finally when you reach the regulatory approval stage. And even regulatory approval stage is not the last part. Post that also a lot of work goes into the picture. So I think one reason, like I feel there are not a very lot of pharma startups because a lot of money and time is required for research and our pharma education. So I am from a farmers college in Bombay, which I feel is the since I interact with a lot of other pharmacy colleges all across India now, which I think Bombay maybe has the best pharma colleges, be it private or be it government. We also we did not have a lot of incorporation of such sort of sessions and the inculcation of this innovative mindset in our curriculum. uh, I think this BITS has this sort of a curriculum. So maybe what we can do is all pharmacologists, since this is the FDP program, the faculty members should start incorporating something and seed that seed the innovation concept in students so that they start off coming up with something new. Because a lot of us feel that if it's pharma, it requires a lot of money. Yes, it requires a lot of money because it is going to be a long process of regulatory, but then there are possibilities available. Like I mentioned, we have initially we did spend something. It was bootstrapped for initial 6 to 8 months, but then we put in our whole and soul to apply for various funding opportunities, and we did crack, which was enough for us to sustain for next 4 5 years. And obviously, then again, you have to start from the scratch. So yeah, the incubation system is not that defined for pharma. It is majorly we fit in with the life science and biotech, and not a lot of pharma startups are there because probably our so IITs they developed this concept of incubation right from maybe their first years of engineering. Bits, Pilani, bits, all the bits, in fact, they developed this. But then I don't see that sort of a culture in the premium institutes of pharma like ICT or NIPER or even, PCP, something like I did not see it at my time. I don't know how things are changing now.
Yeah. So hopefully, Ruchi, the things would pretty sure change henceforth. Like as we have more this kind of sessions. Rakesh ji, we have a very strategic questions for an incubation center. This is coming from Sunil Kumar Savita. Kindly throw some light on what are those strategies adopted by business incubators to attract startups as tenants.
All right. Right. So what we do is we try to communicate how can we empower the innovator and how, because they would be having multiple questions, and as Ruchi said, there could be frustration which could come in mind, and we try to kind of debunk certain myths about startups. So in terms of the, for example, when somebody had come in early, they're like, if I form a private limited company, if I take in money, and if I my company, if I fail, what would happen? Will my property get attached? There was multiple things which was coming in. So we kind of tell them that it is there is a lot of support that the Indian government is giving in terms of funding, grant funding, wherein it is given to you. It's a given to you. You don't have to repay it as such. But the way in which you repay is how you create wealth for the country and how you represent your country when you go to different forums overseas as well. That is one way of kind of empowering or giving confidence to the innovator. And they would be having multiple different questions. So we kind of have open hour sessions with our innovators because, as I said, we have an ERP application in which get at least in a quarter. In the last board meeting, I was just reporting, we had around 280 within a period of 3 months. So we're looking at around 3 ideas which we get in a day, and some of them would give we have a question on why do you want to start up, and then they share, this is what it is, and these are some of the questions we have. We kind of collate all these questions and kind of do an open hour with our innovators who are in our pipeline to kind of tell them that these are some of the myths and these are some of the support we can give, and we give in terms of what is the mentorship support which is available. So all our mentors are listed on our website, and then we make the appropriate connection to make sure that the risk that a startup would need to take is kind of it is limited. And then we have call for application which is made public on all our social media, and then these kind of attract or gives inputs to the innovators in terms of what are the various opportunities which is available. And obviously our support in terms of lab support, etc., is again made visible, and then this kind of attracts various innovators to come on forth. And we also believe in co-incubation, which basically means that as Ruchi said, that one startup or one incubation center may not have all the support, so we kind of bring in help from other incubation centers which is their thrust areas. For example, Ruchi said there is not many pharma specific incubation centers, so experts we kind of draw in from other centers or other institutes as such, and we try to co-create in this ecosystem. So this is how we kind of attract talent.
Yeah, and another question from the same person, Mr. Sunil Kumar Savita, is again another strategic question. It is about how the growth of a startup can be measured, especially in reference to incubation process. Is it only financial growth, or are there any other parameters wherein you evaluate the growth of a startup?
Right. So growth of a startup, how do we evaluate? There are different parameters, and we have a structured progress review which we conduct with the startups every 6 months or on and off, informal basis. We kind of do that, and so growth is measured in terms of well, finally, what growth really talks in terms is not the fundraising. Even our media talks about startup raising fund, and they're getting a lot of support, or even competitions being won, etc. What we really tell is that your customers really speak for you. What is your customer talking about your startup in terms of revenues? What was your pilots which we've been able to do? Were you able to get the buy-in from within your target, if it is a B2B segment, a business to business segment, or if a pharma company, have they expressed interest in willing to do a pilot with you? Have you been able to do clinical validation? For example, the gene therapy company that I was mentioning, recently we connected them with Tata Memorial Hospital, and they started the first in India sort of a human clinical trial for injecting that particular, I don't want to go into the details, but basically they got approval for the first in human trials. These are certain step-by-step measures in which we can see a startup is making progress. Next is in terms of how have you been able to convince your team members, especially during this time. We've been speaking to a lot of startups who have been very demoralized, especially pre-revenue startups, not getting enough funding to sustain and give that oxygen. So we kind of see how many of them are being able to hold their team in place, reduce the attrition rate, build that confidence. And then in terms of how is the particular startup empowering their employees, there are different means of doing it. One is they may not be able to pay salaries in terms of industry rates for sure. How is the founder being able to communicate the large scale vision of the company, even to the smallest of employees within the organization? And one way of doing is in terms of giving ESOPs, which basically means giving shares, small, it's called employee stock options provision, which basically gives the employee small bit of the share in the company, which basically as the company grows, he or she sees that vision that I am able to contribute to my company, and this is how it is growing. So these are some ways. So and then if I look at objectively, I'll say it is revenues, it is IP being filed, it is pilots being given, what is your customer talking about you, and what is your shareholders basically finally telling about this particular company. And then it all, so once the core is established, internal processes have been established, then we see fundraising and everything as a follow through of what happens internally.
Yeah, I think that's the reason Mr. Sunil Kumar wanted to know internally how you are managing it. Yeah, Ruchi, taking the same question to you actually with a very different perspective, and this is my last question to you actually, is what is the definition, or what do you mean by growth for you as a startup? And of course, a typical question that is generally asked in most of the job interviews: where do you see yourself after a certain period of time?
I think growth for me would be in terms of, since I mentioned, like these are all, for me, it's all milestone based, because initially when we started, I used to be like, okay, in 2 years, I'll have my product in the market up and running. But then once you get into it, you realize, okay, there are so many milestones that you have to achieve. So right now, I would say in on milestone basis, my growth for me would be when I'm able to get that CDSU approval for marketing the product. That would be the growth for me, because like post the CDSU approval, also you need to start the marketing of the product. And till now, we haven't finalized on whether we are going to do it ourselves. We are in talks with some pharma companies, whether they would be willing to have a more of a royalty based uh, arrangement, wherein they can market it for us and sell it on their brand name. So right now the growth would be if I get the CDSU approval, because then that will be a very satisfying moment for me as a formulator, as a formulation scientist, because seeing your product getting approved, I know it works in humans, I know it works in animals, but then reaching that stage of approval is still somewhere distant. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. I think we have Dr. Clara who wants to ask a few specific questions. Over to you, Dr. Clara.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Ruchi, this is a question for you. First and foremost, I really appreciate your journey from being a faculty to an entrepreneur. It's a very difficult choice to make in today's world when there's a instability. So my question to you is that when you write for BIRAC or we write for any such grants, what are the key points we need to focus on in terms of a project proposal, in terms of a presentation? Because we're used to doing research presentation, and I think it's a different ball game altogether.
Yeah.
So can you just help us out over there?
Yeah. One important thing here is we as researchers, we focus a lot on technical knowledge. But then always remember the evaluator who will be there for your proposal might not be the subject expert. So now if you write a lot of technical, bioavailability and probably data potential, stability, etc., they will not understand these points. But then if you write something about the impact that your product is going to make, and always think of it as a product, something that you will be able to use it for patient care or the end user. So most important thing is shifting your focus from writing about how technically meritorious your product or your project is. Don't think about it as a project. Think about it as a product. That is most important, because we did this mistake coming from academia. I did that mistake and I was talking all about technical. But then they do not understand those technical aspects. They understand what is the outcome. So you need to think a step ahead. In fact, so in these past 4-5 years, I have been mentoring a few MPharm students, not directly as a guide, but kind of a co-guide for various formulation projects. So I always, try to incorporate a lot of market survey, talk to the patients. If you're working on diabetes, talk to diabetic people, talk to endocrinologists. So if you build up your MPharm project or your PhD project in this way, wherein you are directly relating it to the market potential, not just in terms of business, but also in terms of impact. So I think Rakesh can add more on it also. A lot of time, so a lot of grant and aids are given for social impact projects. Something which has a lot of social impact. So, like I mentioned, our company, we started it, wholly for developing products for maternal and child health, which is a major grave problem. Now when you, and what as a academician, how I would have written the project, B12 has 1 to 3% of bioavailability, so I need to improve the bioavailability. Now the technical the evaluator will not understand this point, but when I tell them if B12 deficiency occurs in these many percentage of population, it leads to 1 2 3 4 10 complications, how it affects the economy, you need to do certain research, and it's not very difficult to shift your focus from project to product and the outcome.
Thank you, Ms. Ruchi. I have another question for Mr. Rakesh and again Ruchi. We have many non-pharma participants in our FDP, and so could you just give us an areas where they can focus on? So just to give you a background, we have people who have come from microbiology, management, pure management. We have also people who have come from academics, proper academics background. So can you just give us insight about which are the areas available for pan population to really embark on this kind of projects or entrepreneurship?
Sure. I can tell you a few domain areas where we're getting a lot of interest from within investors or within BIRAC itself. One is on genomics with COVID and the amount of sequencing and the variants which are there. We have, in fact, we have one startup within Scion itself who focuses on genomics for detection of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. That is one. A second, in terms of diagnostics, again, we have COVID screening lateral flow assays, which can help in detection of COVID. And then we have, I think diagnostics is one area that we have seen a lot of startups being within not just in Scion, but within the ecosystem. Then is in terms of medical devices. Very few indigenously developed medical devices within the country. Most of them are being imported, but also there has been a trust factor again being involved and a change in mindset from the doctor's perspective. We have a startup who is working on digital stethoscopes. So I'll just quickly, if you have time, do we, or I'll just quickly tell what it is. So making
We have time.
all right. So they came up with a problem statement saying that the Littmann stethoscope, which is being currently used by a digital stethoscope by doctors, they are expensive, and probably an Indian a doctor who is just graduating out from college may not be able to afford them. So they said, okay, this is a problem statement. I'm going to work, which came in from the doctors themselves. So I'm going to work on a connector which sits on an analog stethoscope. But what it does is that if I plug in this connector, I will be able to record sounds, auscultations. If I am able to hear, I can amplify the sound, record it, transmit over Bluetooth. And this came in very handy in COVID, wherein the stethoscope can be used just as a hand, a piece like this. They don't have to put a ear attachment. This could be done by the patient themselves and sitting in another enclosure, and the doctors using Bluetooth was able to hear the sounds and the murmurs, etc. There is one way of technology being used during these times. But then, interestingly, when they did the customer discovery, as we call, the technologists wanted to make it more funky, so they made it in the form of a headset similar to what Mr. Vijay is using. But then the doctors said that, oh, this is completely changing our identity. Our doctors, when we speak, we put our stethoscope on our collar like this, and if it's in the form of a headphone, it doesn't give the aesthetic value. So they said, okay, these feedbacks will come into place at an early stage, because once if they have developed entire prototype and gone and shown to a doctor, they would have said, sorry, I don't want to use it. It looks, very futuristic and removes my identity. So they use the conventional method, because we tend to focus a lot on tech rather than what a user would really want to use it for. So I think diagnostics, devices, genomics is what we're seeing. And then I think in terms of bio, I think this is where there's one more which I don't know if it is coming up, but we've seen artificial meat also coming up, and we have a startup who's working on scaffold, basically the covering. The piece that gives the structure or the scaffold to lab cultivated meat. We have seen that coming up. Yeah, I think this is in terms of microbiology and other domains. This is what we've seeing within the ecosystem.
Thank you, Mr. Rakesh. Before Vijay moves to another participant, I have a last question for you, Mr. Rakesh. We have heard of this new concept of pre-incubators and we know about incubators, but there's a terminology which is coming up quite often during this IAC about pre-incubators. So can you just tell us how does it differ from incubator? And as an institute which does not have the entrepreneurship culture in place, which one would you prefer, incubator or pre-incubator?
I think pre-incubation is really a subset of incubation. What it really does is there could be individual innovators who would be coming up and not forming a company or a separate legal entity. What usually happens with an incubation center, we prefer it should be a private limited company. Simple reason being, if an incubator need to take shares in the company from an individual or an LLP, which is another way of incorporating a legal entity, basically means limited liability company, we will not be able to take in shares in the company and so kind of invest in the company as such. And investors and incubators do not usually invest from their own corpus into an innovator because it goes to a savings bank account or an account which is not monitored well. But if it goes, and maybe it may not be able to be monitored as well, or there wouldn't be what do I say, accountability. But if it is a legal company, legal entity, that means there is accountability that is going to be used for a particular use and such. And that is why pre-incubation came into being, mainly because we're seeing government being a front runner in giving funding and grant support. And that can be given even to an individual innovators before they incorporate a legal entity. So pre-incubators are basically a subset, as I said, of an incubation center, wherein individual innovators come in and then we give them a small funding. It could be in the range of subsistence grant of 30,000 a month, which is called as an entrepreneur in residence, or it is given by both, I think, all government agencies. And DST gives it as EIR, MeitY gives it as Tide 2.0 subsistence grant. Again, DST gives it as Nidhi Prayas grant. BIRAC gives it as BIG. All these can go to individual innovators, wherein the incubation center, there is an entity and a space available to these innovators. And for the duration of this particular grant, which can range anywhere between 12 months to 18 months, the entire plethora of support is being given by the incubation center, which basically is termed as pre-incubation, which basically means that during this time, the 12 months or the 18 time, they can convert their idea into a workable prototype, which could be demonstrated, and then that gives confidence to the incubator as well as the innovator that there is substance in what I'm doing, and then they want to take it as a serious venture taking forward, and then they convert into incubation, and then once they develop from there, it goes to an acceleration. So these are three different ways or three different stages of incubator journey, really: pre-incubation, incubation, and post-incubation. But if you ask if pre-incubator should be set up, the only the risk there is that you're dependent solely on government grants, and government grants have a time duration, and they also expect the incubation center to be self-sustaining, because there is government can't keep pumping money into an entity without it being self-generating, right? So after a time, it should have its own internal mechanism by which it can generate further funding. So an incubation center should be the right approach, and then pre-incubation can be a mechanism by which they are able to widen that funnel in terms of getting more innovators on there, and then you kind of triage them or you filter them, and then goes to the next stage of incubation and then acceleration. That's the step we kind of do it at Sign.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Clara. And I think we are running out of time, but then we'll take one last question by Dr. S. Bharti Vasu. I request the admin to allow her to unmute herself. Dr. Bharti? Okay. I don't think she's available, and I think thank you so much, both Rakesh and Ruchi, for this wonderful buzz session. A lot of learning for me as well as a outsider to the incubation or startup ecosystem, I would say. And thank you so much, Dr. Haritha, for providing this particular opportunity to be part of this particular session. Over to you, Dr. Haritha.
Thank you, sir, for this session. Thank you, Rakesh, sir. Thank you, Ruchi, madam. I now call upon Dr. Ujjwala Shinde, ma'am, coordinator of our FDP, to felicitate